Recording in progress. That's his John is in his way now.
What's he feeling? Did you talk to him?
I haven't talked to him. I think he's, last I saw him, he was still feeling pretty weak. So, in a good chair. So if he's looking straight into the camera, which he won't, he'll be looking at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we could put that up higher so that you're looking right into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll get a couple books. Or does that have to start automatically go up? Okay? Yeah. That's closer, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, you lose half the body if you go much higher.
Much higher. I mean, we could tilt it down, but much higher. Now you're looking down on someone.
Yeah. And this thing's in your way.
Yeah, so you can't see the screen.
Well, hello there.
What are you looking at?
Doesn't matter, yeah.
Looking at him, her?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter, does it? That's good enough. I think we can work around it. I mean, she is really good. Hey. So he's looking at us. Yes. What do you have for questions for Tammy?
We've talked a lot. So we talked to David. I don't have anything right off the top. What questions do you have for me?
I don't know. I don't have any questions. I think they asked me. I think the main thing I mentioned to Jess was, Thursdays. Is there any flexibility that we have to move children Monday, Wednesday? So I think we have to think about that. But otherwise, the Thursday evening was
that's not that might only get on compliment. I think that I can figure it out. If there's no way, then I can try to figure it out.
Is that pretty set on Thursdays?
It's only one Thursday a month that I am actually. Okay, so it will be 2 Thursdays a month, but in one of them I can leave someone there because the other people are already trained to do what I do. But the other one is that the worship team. When I do worship, then I have to be there. So I will have to just talk to the system to figure out if maybe have someone traveling for me, or maybe because it's usually 2 lead singers. So I'm the lead singer, and then there's another person there. So maybe this other person can just be the lead, and then or maybe my daughter can start doing that.
How would you feel about that? This is the church.
It is. Yeah, it'd be a little hard, but I can still do Sundays. So yeah, so that'll be at least. Because the problem is that the worship is from 7 to 8. It's exactly a prayer worship night, and so it's from 7 to 8, 7:30 to 8. Yeah, 7:30 to 8. So
is it live or streaming?
It's live streaming.
It's live streaming.
Yes. So we do it, and as we do it, it's on this morning option. Yes. So that's one thing, but I think it will be it's not possible. And like I said, I just do some things and then you have someone.
one of our challenges is, with switching to programs, we have good bands.
Yes.
But we'll chat about that, just see if that's possible. They'll be coming tonight, so Alex and I'll talk about all that. Are there other questions outside of the schedule that you? How are you feeling? We had a opportunity to talk to Leslie about.
Yeah, I'll talk. My only concern was the kids being between moms. Yeah, I'll just have to figure out a way to do that. I mean, usually it's a bit flexible, so.
We all have families. Kids, none of that, but it's for who we are. So we're very accommodating.
And as I was saying, yeah, you know, at 2:30, and our dash here at 3:30, I just feel like we were doing running around, but we don't have been doing it, so.
Then you have to.
Yeah. So, that wouldn't be an issue for us, but yeah, it's just.
Yeah, it's gonna be a concern for maybe a couple of months, or something, we don't have a protocol. And so my husband and I are doing more the problem of picking up the kids. But we haven't been able to buy that because we don't have the money. So we're saying, once I have income, because I haven't been having like about 16, we can actually start. Buy a car now, and then it's gonna be until that time.
And your daughter, yeah.
Yeah, my daughter
turned
turns
18.
Right, and she's been driving since.
Gotcha.
So once we get a car for her, then she can just go with her brother and the ones and so she will take care of that.
Yeah, well, always.
Yeah.
So, some years in the home.
Yeah, but she was doing it after, she actually was doing it because I start at the end of September. So my school year starts at the end of September, but they started the beginning of September, so she was doing all the driving with her brother and all that until I had to use the car. So she's been doing it, she can do it, so that's the only thing, the only thing that we don't have that. Now, we can really think about some of the families apartment code, so some people are not going to just over to this, yeah, we can do it.
That's less of a challenge. It's far less of a challenge for us here. Two touches with the kids. So it's
Right.
Well, why don't we all kind of think about that a little bit, and maybe touch base again tomorrow, and talk about phone or something? So nice to see you.
Nice and meeting you.
Where's your coat?
Who is that? Hello,
Hey John, hey everybody, how we doing? Hey Art.
can you hear me?
Yep, I've got you, Art.
Great, great. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Brian, Brown, Michael Hurst, and Rob Best got together this week, had a great meeting. They met with the city earlier this week, and they're putting you on board, on what they're doing, and so that you're going to get all of that from them.
Awesome. That sounds great. Thanks, Art.
But I just want to tell you that is an amazing bunch of things that are coming together. The city's going to put 18 million in. Hope will put 5 million in, or POP, Pillars of Promise, and then they'll just see where it goes. And they want everybody working together: the city, the
Yep.
state, FCA, Iowa.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody.
I'm in. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's good. You got home okay that night?
Yeah, I did. Yep, everything is good and planning on coming up next time too. So all things
Great.
go well. So, yep.
Great. Okay. Now I see that Akeem is on. Hello, Akeem.
Hey, how you doing, Art?
Good. Good to see you. Well, I
Good to
can't
be here.
see you, but good to have you.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
Oh, there you are. And you're
Yeah.
at school.
No, not today. We have MEA week.
That's right. You have
Yeah.
today off that way. You don't have meetings?
This one.
This one? Great.
Yeah.
Now who else came on? Is that Kenneth? Trent. Hello, Trent.
Hey, Art, how are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. John Turnipseed is at the door, so just went to get him. Good. Now, Trent, we're going to have a very interesting conversation today about violence. And so we're going to hear from John and from Tom, but we're going to get a lot of questions and hear from you too, okay?
That's great. I'm really looking forward to this today. As you know, where I'm at, balance is just.
We were just interviewing a woman from Ecuador who was doing things down in Ecuador and was in gang turf, and her husband kept getting kind of freaked out, with the gang stuff. He was a piano player, and they would come up in front of him and just stand in front of him and say, "You can't play anymore, and get out of here." And so a lot of gang turf stuff goes on. Yep. And here comes John Turnipseed, who is recovering and doing a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. How you doing?
Better.
Better? You want a hot chocolate?
No, it's okay.
You okay?
Mhm.
Okay, good. Now, how do we get you on here? I don't know.
Okay.
Hi, Brandon. Hey, wave down there you go. So how do we?
I got my own computer, but
No, we can do that.
oh, there we go.
See?
Yeah. This will be my second class today. I just taught my first one.
Yeah, I know.
Hey,
Now, how are you gonna get this movie recorded out?
Well,
Oh, does he have it?
he has it.
He has it.
So, yeah.
It's got to give you a hug. I'm so glad to see you.
All right.
Uh,
Oh, and what's her name? Ellen Heinrich is stopping by to see me at 1. So we just sit in that little room over there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
When did you send that to me, John?
Huh?
When did you send that to me?
Jess at Studio-180 about.
Oh, 180, okay.
And
There
Vic,
it is.
is that Victor?
Yes.
Hello, Victor.
Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Good.
All right.
Good. Brandon gives us this, Victor gives us this. Trent, he just came on and didn't do anything. Good.
You were just waiting for people to get on?
Yeah, we're doing that. Akeem is on. He's got MEA weekend, so he's able to come on. I wonder who else can do that.
The Bleed's number, I've been on. He get his stuff together?
Trying to get into the meeting, Jack Lee. I'm told communication services are up and running in Red Wing. It was posted, trying to get into the meeting. How does Tom Lee get into the meeting?
He uses the link that everybody else used.
Use the link we sent to everybody else and you.
Mhm.
Here you are. Okay.
Guys? Open more building? No. No, this is 2017.
He said, what's the meeting password?
Jess?
Oh, 3019 is next door.
Yeah, so you're close. Hey, come out this way, you'd be like.
Jess?
Yes, sir.
What's the meeting password, Tom asks.
There is no password.
He probably clicked on, there's 2 different links, I think, sometimes when you send those. One is directly in and one's through a password. Yes, you got another pen.
A pen.
I can't get that link to transfer off my phone to my computer.
He should be able to open the email.
He should be able to
On
send
his-
the email to himself. What's his email? I got his email. Send it to his email.
What is your email? And we'll send it directly to your email.
Yeah.
We have 2 guys here for Priscilla's program. and
Oh,
they can't
right
get in.
next,
Yeah, but 3019 is locked.
3023. I mean, it's next to it. It's not right.
Oh, so it's a fathering
It's a
center.
fathering
not
center.
the- Oh, hey guys,
Which
you're
link is
using
it,
the wrong
John?
address. It's 1 more down.
They're awful late.
Hmm?
Them guys that showed up, they were supposed to be there in my class.
Which link would you like to use today, John?
Oh, okay, the 4th one.
The 4th one?
Turnip seed, it says.
Okay.
Okay, can we get it? I'm sorry, you have to send it.
You trying to pull up Microsoft Office?
No.
Oh.
I'm trying to pull up the video that you just sent me.
Oh, you got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, what we're gonna do right now is check in, and just with 30 seconds. Travis, what's going on this week for you?
This week I am getting ready for 2 weddings this weekend. One of my cousins is getting married, and then a good friend from high school. But the bad news is I took my suits to the dry cleaners last night, and or not last night, the dry cleaners on Saturday, and that dry cleaners actually burnt down last night. So now I got to go find some new suits for the 2 weddings that I've got this weekend. So yeah, didn't expect that
Okay.
to happen.
Okay. Trent, your week.
Just your average week in the life of a urban pastor. Lots of meetings, doing pastoral care with people, building some new relationships in the city with other pastors, and then more this week just on some internal strategy and some upcoming vision for this year at Wooddale. So
Okay. Our son-in-law is a pastor up in Walker, Minnesota. He's been at an evangelical free church for a long time, and his co-pastor got COVID a year ago, was rushed down here to a hospital, went back up after being cured, went out to the garden last Thursday, came home, went down to the basement and died. Heart failure. So they are trying to work all that through with, you never know what goes on. The dry cleaners can burn down, or your partner can die. Wow. Okay, Brandon, your week.
Yeah, just catching up. I've been out of the office for 2 weeks. And so last week was my first week, and so just coming back this week, been doing a lot of work on some just some systems that we're trying to get things in place. And just in and out of the office, going here, going there, doing certain types of things, and just trying to be have as much energy as I can with a newborn at home, so we're not sleeping very much, but that's all a part of it.
There you go. And when was the baby born? 2 weeks ago?
It was born a month ago yesterday.
A month ago yesterday. Okay.
Yep.
Victor.
Congratulations, Brandon. That's cool as heck.
Appreciate that, man. Appreciate this.
Yeah,
The fourth
for
one,
sure.
man.
Wow. I've been busy working. I went and saw Pastor Tim this past Sunday. I went and saw his service. I met him at the prayer breakfast last week. So thanks for making that connection. That was cool. And I've just been focused on work, honestly, focused on work and taking care of my responsibilities at the house. So status quo.
Great. Marquise, you're there. Unmute.
I've been here. How you doing, sir? I'm
How's your
blessed
week?
and highly favored. I just
30
been
seconds.
trying to be that agent of change and show my community what change looks like, being consistent and just showing up, doing the work, transforming that street energy into community energy in my neighborhood, and actually, just loving on my people and helping people understand what's going on over here in 38th Chicago, and the George Floyd Square, and just represent change through and through.
And we're going to talk about violence in the city today, so that's going to be an interesting one. Akeem, welcome.
Thank you. I really have a basic week. It was a little short. I work at a high school, so my week really consists of coming up with action plans to help these kids academically be successful, and then trying to use certain academic tools to transfer over to try to get them to curve their behavior out in the world. So, I had a typical week for being a community cultural specialist, and I'm currently working with Dave Hahn to see if I can start putting together free basketball trainings. So I got that going on as well.
Great. That's terrific. We had a great Minnesota prayer breakfast last week, and we were over at the Hub, and you know where that is, and we had a good time. Okay, so John, we're gonna have John Turnipseed and Tom Blee, Dr. Blee, who will be coming on, and they're gonna be talking about violence. And they're gonna be presenting, and they're gonna be dialoguing, and we're gonna be asking questions, because this is big time. Violence is not going away. It's increasing. So let's talk about it. John?
Hey, everybody. My week has been a little hectic. Well, not hectic because I've been in bed for a week and a half. Lost about 30 pounds since the last time you seen me, but the rest of me is really good. Had some heart issues, but so thankful to be here today. It's a great day. I want to talk about violence in a way, how violence is created in young people's lives, and how adults sometimes just look the other way. Okay, okay. Let's take North Minneapolis, all the shooting, all the adults you see them on TV. Somebody needs to help. Well, why not you? Well, this, that, and the other. The police. Well, you just said you don't want the police. Why not you? Who's supposed to help? Who's supposed to do? What are these kids? They're spiraling out of control. There's a thing I talked to you guys about. I think it's called life scripts. And some of these kids are meant to be murderers. They're going to be murderers one day because of life script. My son, little Johnny, was given a gun at 12, and so was I. And that was part of his life script. He's doing life in prison right now. And his nickname was Bang Bang. His grandfather used to call him that because he liked guns and stuff. So we helped him develop a life script. And unless an injunction comes along, an injunction means either you go to jail, to hell, or find God, nothing changes. So I'm going to show you a film that we made. I don't think you guys have seen it, called Turnip Seed. It's one of 3. And then I'm going to ask you some questions about the film after it's done. So please pay attention about how this kid came to be what he came to be. Jess?
This is a professional film. It's excellent. It won a great award.
Turnip seed.
Back here by 9 o'clock tonight. And those cuffs stay on the whole time, you get me? Damned irregular.
Hey, you mind loosening these? They chafing.
You gotta be kidding me.
I was 6 years old when the boogeyman started haunting me.
Who gonna step in that? Try to ask me who I've been with? Huh? How many times I can... They got beat up and locked on you. Huh? Don't ask me no goddamn. What? What? You got something to say? Don't you move.
Are you okay, Mama?
I'm fine, Johnny. Get out of here before your father comes back. What are you doing, Johnny?
Every night, I tried to keep the boogeyman out. Sometimes he got in anyway. I pray he'd go away. But I guess when your father is the devil, you can't expect God to answer your prayers.
You got a track coming.
You can't take the boogeyman down,
Don't make me beat you again.
you'll find someone you can.
Yo, you did good, Johnny. Real good. He ain't gonna make fun of you again. That's how you become a man, alright?
Yeah.
Give respect.
Yep.
You know how to get real respect, though?
What? This is cool, man.
Tommy was my man. Took me places my mama told me not to go.
Hey, fellas, it's my boy Johnny, alright?
Showed me things I wasn't supposed to see.
It's my boy Johnny. You take care of him, right?
What you need taken care of.
You spend enough time in hell, you get the feeling like you belong.
Is that your brother? Guy in the neighborhood?
Yeah. In the movie, he's my big brother.
Yeah, so in real life, was that your big brother who brought you in?
My big cousin.
Your cousin?
I'm the oldest.
Oh.
You think he gonna look like me?
Baby, he's gonna have your eyes. He's gonna have your smile, your lips.
What you wanna call him?
Renee.
Girl, please. Boy gonna get jumped in the playground with a name like that.
Well, what you wanna call him?
Sean.
Sean. Nice.
What kind of man you think he gonna be?
A good man. Strong. Like his father. Hello?
Hello? Tommy. Tommy, what's the matter? He do this to you, Mama?
Don't do nothing to your father, Johnny. You don't want to cross your father. Johnny!
Sooner or later, you gotta do something about the boogeyman.
Here it is. A lot of your family work here. Uncles, cousins. They all work for me. I'm the foreman.
Yeah? How much you pay?
They don't complain. Heard you're gonna be a father. Time to make your own way. I gotta start you out on the floor. You do a good job, maybe in a while I can move you. Look, ain't no skin off my back. I gotta start my day. Let me know what you want to do.
I ain't right out here for a job.
What you wasting my time for?
I came out here to tell you, don't ever hit Mama again.
Excuse me?
You heard me. You touch her again and I'll kill you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You threatening me? You threatening me? I'm trying to give you a chance, boy. I'm your damn father.
I know who you are. You touch her again.
You get in my car, you drive out here, and you threaten me? I'm trying to give you work, boy.
I don't need it. I make more in a week than you do in a month. Now touch her again, and something gonna happen.
I need a drink.
Sure you want that pistol under your seat?
You kill me, your ass goes to jail.
I kill you, they'll give me a medal. You draw on me as self-defense. Besides, juvie be a walk in the park.
You really thought this shit through, didn't you?
Go on. Draw on me. This bullet got a life of its own.
Relax.
Get up. That was the last time I saw the boogeyman. But what I didn't know was, every time I looked in the mirror, I'd see him.
Just be cool, man. Just be cool. You ain't got to do this, man. It ain't about got to. We all right? We good, man. We good. You sure? Man, I said be cool! I said be cool, man! I said be cool! Johnny, let's go, man. Come on! Johnny, come on, man! So when you leaving?
Tomorrow.
Taking Sean?
What am I gonna do? Leave him with your mama? Not with your father like he is.
Won't do anything.
Who's gonna be sure of that? You? What are you gonna do in there?
Where you going?
Oklahoma.
Leaving Oklahoma. That's how it is.
You blaming me? Shit, baby, I can't wait forever. You did this.
You think I wanted this?
Just because someone gives you a gun, don't mean you have to use it.
Go on and go then.
You want me to say something to Sean?
No.
You don't become a boogeyman overnight. You have to work at it, learn it. And then one day you wake up and you realize, I'm you.
Tired, Dad. Tired of all of this.
My son was buried today. Sean Ramon. I watched them put his body into the ground. Beat to death by the fool who's supposed to be watching out for him. have to run off with that piece of. It's my fault. I should have been there. Should have done something. I don't want this. Anymore. I forgive you, Dad. Need anything?
Time's up. Is cuff still bothering you?
Please, God, make it stop. 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 Please, God, make it stop.
Yeah, after that. Okay. Am I on? Okay. All right, so you've seen the first of 3 short films that we made. Hey, there's Dr. Tom. He's been up all night, so.
There we go. Good morning. I made it.
Yeah, good. Of course, you've seen this film 100,000 times. I want to ask each of the participants, and this is Dr. Tom Blee, who's going to be speaking in a little bit. What do you do for this kid? He lives in your neighborhood. You see, you always, everybody knows the kids that are in trouble all the time. The kids are going, you can see the progression of their, where they're going. They're going to jail or hell. And what do you do? You're a neighbor. I'm not talking about your professional. You don't have to be a professional. And anybody got any suggestions? What would you do for this kid at this point in his life? You see, he's asking God to make it stop, the cycle to make it stop. But he doesn't know how to do it. Any suggestions? And there's a million kids out there just like him at that point. Marquise, I'm gonna lean on you, brother. What do? You were that kid. I mean, different circumstances, but the same pain.
We try to get to know him. I know you told me almost 2 years ago, man, be what you needed. And that's literally what I've tried to do for the last couple of years, me coming out of prison. Be what I needed, try to build up relationships and get to know these people, because we all know that hurt people hurt people. Mm-hmm. So we really got to see why a lot of the youth are doing what they do. And I can say for me as a young guy that just grew up in a single parent home, I didn't have no real positive male figures to look up to. So that's why I joined the gang, and a lot of them were my family members, and we were just a bunch of young brothers, just the blind leading the blind.
Thank you. That's a good response. Anybody else? What would you do? You're living you're living on the same block as this kid. You're not living 20 miles away, and you see this kid because he's not hiding his behaviors. What do you do?
Yeah, I agree with Marquise, and you just, it's a hard thing. You can't, you have to realize that, like, there's no easy answer. There's no, no matter what your efforts can be, this is a person who is still their own person, and they are going to make their own decisions as well. But, like you said, being what you always wanted. And that was the same thing for me. Somebody stepped in and kind of pulled me to the side and was like, hey, man, this is not, the route that you want to go. That didn't change a whole lot, for me, but in those situations. But I think that in other circumstances where, you just, life, man, just doing life together with the person, inviting them in, invite them into your home, do it, I work out in the morning. Come work out with me. Just kind of get, like you said, get to know the person, and try to develop that relationship and that trust to where your words actually start to mean something. There's some sort of investment to where your example of doing right becomes be heavier and heavier and heavier. You're a person who they look to for not necessarily approval, but look to for guidance. And that's just been some of my experience where that kind of stuff changes very little, small increments at a time. It's not like this huge change right in the moment. My experience has been in this, it's little changes to where you look like, kind of like what he was saying in the video. You don't become this boogeyman overnight. You have to practice at it. But then when you look up, you realize that's what you are. And I think it's the same thing the other way. Is just those little increments of relationship, and over time you start to realize that the trajectory of this young man is not what it was before.
Okay. Anyone else? Great answers. I mean, there's no wrong answer to this, because you're living out of your own thought pattern, and that's how people do it. You see, at the beginning of the movie, you might not have caught it when his dad was beating his mom. He was praying, God, make it stop. God, make it stop. And then when God didn't make it stop, 10 years later, he made it stop himself. So at the end, he's back. He's in prison. His child has just been beaten to death. His father just died. And he's asking God to make it stop. But he doesn't, if he knew how to make it stop, he wouldn't be asking. You know, so what can we do for this kid? Or kids like him? See, I'm just, let's not focus on just one kid. Because all the, different kids do different things. Some are out there sniffing glue and huffing, and some are out there shooting people, and some are out, all different things. Any suggestions?
I wanted to chime in real quick. I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of Brandon with a couple of things. The first thing is I feel like being one of those kids, you can't talk to them. You have to be the example. You have to be the example. You have to be the alternative. You have to basically be showing them a different way. In the streets, it's kind of, two ways you can go. You could be a gangbanger or somebody that hustles money. And there's many different ways to hustle money. You could pimp, you could sell drugs, you could sell your body, you could do a lot of things. You could steal, rob, but I feel like if you want this kid to stop, you kind of got to be the example. And that's kind of hard because we learn from society, whether we want to admit that or not. A lot of things that we learn are learned from society and not necessarily inside of the household. So it's a real big thing, real big part of the community that you're in, that there's more than just one person being this alternative example. And then I wanted to chime in on Brandon referring to being a guide. I was just talking to my mom about the difference between being a guide and being a parent. And I feel that being a parent is having your kid on a leash. And when they go too far, you yank the leash. And I feel like that yanking of the leash encourages you to become the boogeyman unknowingly. And I like the word guide because I use the example of a safari. If you are in a safari and you have a guide, he is literally responsible for everything that you do. So you cannot jump out of this car. You cannot touch the animals without him either okaying it or letting you know, hey, touch this animal, this will probably happen. And that affects everyone that is inside of this car. So being a guide, you kind of are being, I feel like, a better version of a parent because you're not totally hands-on, but you're not totally hands-off. So
Yeah.
that's what I feel. And I feel, Brandon made a good point by bringing that up.
So, and good, thank you. They were all great answers. Anybody else before we move on? Because sometimes, let me take shootings. You read the paper or go turn to the news. There's people get shot every day, and you say somebody got shot on 11th in Chicago. Oh, okay. Somebody got shot down. But when it happens to your little nephew, then it becomes an issue. Okay. But you would really be depressed if you knew how many people got shot every day. They don't put it all on the news. All of it doesn't catch the news. How many shots were fired every day and stuff. Every once in a while, a kid dies. Not every once in a while. A lot of kids have died this year. And it's not because it ain't my cousin or my brother we sort of look at it a little different. But unfortunately, they are your cousin's little brothers. Unfortunately, and stuff. And those of us that are doing well, it's called upon us to do something. And something doesn't mean running into gang territory, this, that, and the other. There's a group of nuns over north. They live in the projects. They don't live in the projects. They live in the worst zone in the world. But they are there. And the crackheads cut their grass for free because they have good intentions. And they're there, they can come and get something to eat, they can get prayed for and things. That's huge. They're doing what they could do, what's within them. So I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Tom Blee, who I've been knowing for a while. And I'd like him to just sort of tell a problem that he had and what he decided to do about it.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we had some communication issues down. I'm in Red Wing, Minnesota. We lost all services last night, so I apologize. It was a little late to getting back on, had to reboot stuff. But I live in Red Wing, and if you don't know where that is, south of the metro, about an hour on the Mississippi River. And I mention that because 12 years of my surgical practice was in Red Wing, Minnesota, a town of 15,000 people, 3 of us doing general surgery. And it's a pretty easy place to live, and it's a pretty easy place to practice medicine. For some reason, I changed my practice. It was principally to teach. So I went up to St. Paul, Minnesota, and went from small town community general surgery into level 1 inner city trauma work. I started June 10th of 2013 at Regions Hospital. And in 1 week, I transfused more blood than I did in 12 years in Red Wing. And in 1 week, I saw something that I never saw in Red Wing. The shootings, the stabbings, and what struck me most was it was the kids. It was the young age. There's a trauma season in Minnesota. It's usually when school's out to when school starts again. And once that trauma season hits, we are just rolling through a system that pretty much dictates how the hospital functions. And it took me about a month to 6 weeks to look at a trauma pager when we get an activation and say, oh, it's just another shooting, or oh, it's just another stabbing. But what happens is, and it's very predictable, you get these young guys that come into the hospital that are all shot up, and they're alone. Friends are gone, family may show up. It's usually mom, auntie, grandma. Rarely you'll see a male figure in the room. If the guys show up and it's their buddies, it's usually a whole different atmosphere. It's kind of just a terrible, it's just, you can walk in the room when the buddies are there and say, this is just not right, what's happening right now. And something pushed me it was kind of October after the first year, where I thought, this isn't right. If I go home to Red Wing, I don't have to lock my door. If there's a knock on the door, I always say, someone's giving you cookies. Well, why are you giving me cookies? Oh, we just mowed your lawn and then we made cookies, we'll give you that. Well, why do you go to the inner city and the guys I'm working with that knock on the door, they open it and they get 5 rounds from a 9mm into their chest? It didn't make sense to me. So the second year I was working there, trauma season seemed to start early. It was in March. And we had an episode where we had 2 kids in probably non-related gangs that overtook one hallway of my hospital. And a nurse came up to me and said, it's too early for this year. We're not doing this. You need to go into those rooms and you need to settle this situation down. And I have no idea what I'm doing, but I walked into the first room thinking, I'm the doctor. I can walk in, they're going to listen to me. And I, did the standard, you're not going to live the next time and you should do something different with your life. And everyone looked at me like I had 2 heads. And so that felt like a brick. So I went to the next room and tried to say the same thing, and it didn't work. And I left the hospital that day saying something needs to be done different. I have a window that many people don't get where people are ready to change. And as I was poking around, I heard this gentleman speaking on the radio named John Turnipseed. And I thought, I need that guy in my hospital at the moment that these guys are willing to listen and make a change. And that's when I emailed John's production company and got an email back and said, I just need to meet with John. And I remember meeting with John not far from Urban Ventures and saying, listen, we pull these kids out of the fire all the time, but we can't bring them into the light. And I need you to come into my hospital, to start a program of change. And I said, we need a program for life. We have end of life programs at the hospital. We have hospice and we have palliative care, but let's start a team for life. So John and I designed a program called Life Team. And we started with just direct interventions. John comes in the hospital. And if you write what my team and organization does, it's fascinating. Marquise hit it right away. Get to know these guys. Brandon said you start with advice, you mentor, you breathe life into them, you do small increments. Don't push them. You bring them to your house. We start bringing guys to my house for Thanksgiving, or bring them. We meet on 10th and Robert at Keys Cafe and bring kids in and talk with them. And a lot of it, like Akeem said, be the example, show them a different way. You got to give them options. And that's what we designed, this wraparound program where if a kid wanted to do something different, there wasn't a problem they could throw at us where we didn't have the ability to help, whether it was getting them through school, whether it was getting them an attorney, walking them through the courts, you name it, and we could do it. And we ended up putting this footprint in the metro area using Urban Ventures on the Minneapolis side, and then places on St. Paul with Ujamaa Place and Neighborhood House. And we had the St. Paul Gang Unit working with us. And every month we were meeting in my hospital, talking about guys, talking about kids, and how do we get them going. And I'll tell you just one final thought is, if you look at the scope of this, like John said, what you see on the news is at 1/10 of what happens. We are the 6th busiest trauma center in the United States out of 600 in St. Paul. The major trauma activations where the whole team gets activated, we have about 1,000 a year. We will admit another 4,000 patients. So out of 5,000 trauma admissions, 12% are gunshot wounds. So we're almost at 600 gunshot wounds a year. So 2 a day, 3 a day. So it's a huge problem.
Okay. So now Dr. Tom had this idea. He heard me on the radio talking about how I grew up and everything. And he asked to meet with me, and we met. We met at a restaurant, and you know, I liked the guy right away and stuff. He's hard not to like and stuff. So we started talking about what he wanted to do. And he didn't have the complete skill set to do it. Now, he's a doctor. He can get him to a certain place, but he couldn't take him any further. So he asked for help. He didn't say, hey, I can pay you $50,000 a year if you come. No, he asked for me to volunteer and stuff because he heard me on the radio. This was near and dear to my heart. So when these kids get shot, you know, having someone that comes in the room that looks like them means a lot. You know, having the doctor and that person work together, oh, that's the magic and stuff. Because the doctors saved their life, so they'll listen to him. And here's a guy that don't know them and is willing to reach out to them and help them. So we became a team. Now we had some hurdles, you know. Well, first off, operated off no money. So it wasn't no, you know, here's the thing, we're gonna write up a 501(c)(3) right away. We did that later, or he did that later. But it was like, this action needs to take place now. So the bureaucracy was ugly. We had to meet with all the hospital staff. Now, I don't have anything behind my name except a GED, okay? So, you know, here they're talking about bringing John Turnipseed in. He's a felon, you know, and letting me have access to their patients. That's almost unheard of because nobody's asked to do it before and stuff. And I remember a meeting we were in and the chaplain was there. And I think he was moved by the fact that we were not trying to take his job. He wasn't willing to walk with these guys on the street, okay? And it was a spiritual program. That was another thing that, you know, hospitals, oh, you're bringing in this faith-based program, you know, but it doesn't serve all faiths, la, la, la. Oh man, go on with that. We came in, and when we won the pastor, the reverend, whatever he was in the hospital, when we got his vote and stuff, we could come in as a spiritual program. So we would actually pray for people while they were in the hospital. Okay, that is the best point to get to young thugs, is when they just almost died and they know that God saved them. They know it and stuff. So we started working together, and we had some amazing amazing success. What's that kid that got shot? Tommy, I want you to tell the story of the kid that got shot. And these things happen every day. And he was going to die. He couldn't eat.
Tay.
Keontae, yeah, Tay.
Tay was the first kid that John and I worked with. You have to. We had a concept. We had the desire to do it, but we needed a success. And just when we needed, this young kid Tay came in, and he's a very typical story. He's a kid he's an East Side St. Paul kid. He just wants to go to school. He's just on the edge of stuff going on, but there was a kid bullying him, and he got stabbed. So he touched our system at age 14 with us as a stabbing victim, and at that point was kind of in overnight, seen and released. So there was no different interaction for this young man other than go to the hospital, get patched up, and go home. And now I got a grudge. Now I got something I got to even the score with. So it was 2 years later that he and his buddy were at a grocery store, and Tay said, "That's the kid that stabbed me." And his buddy said, "You sure?" And he said, "Yeah." So they followed him out to the parking lot and started to kind of harass this kid. Kid said, "I didn't do it. I didn't do it." All of a sudden, Tay just says, "Firecracker" goes off. Kid runs away, and Tay and his buddy start walking away. And what's very common is many times people don't know they're shot. And Tay's walking away, and all of a sudden says, "I can't feel my arm." And his buddy said, "Oh, you got shot." So he came into the hospital. We're a mile away, and came pretty quickly and was just about dead by the time he got there. So he had a gunshot wound to the right upper quadrant of the abdomen. So under the right ribs, it's called the sole of the abdomen. It's one of the worst gunshot wounds you can get. So he went right to the operating room with one of my partners, and he had it, through the stomach itself, and then through the vena cava, huge blood vessel. When the vena cava bleeds in the operating room, you can hear it. So they patched that up and got him going, and we pack their belly. It's a temporary closure. He's in the ICU getting warmed up, doing things, and stuff's not registering correctly. Something is clinically wrong. Back to the operating room, and they find out, well, he nicked this major artery that supplies all the small intestine. So the vascular team came in and tried to do these bypass jump grafts and thought, well, something might work. And he went back to the ICU. So Tay goes through 2 major operations. He ends up 6 days asleep, finally comes upstairs, and I was the upstairs trauma person. And here's this young kid, quiet, sheets up to his nose, dark room, doesn't want to talk. And I'm thinking, this is a kid that needs to see John. As I started to just to talk to him, like Brandon said, kind of get to know him and just subtly work my way into his life, he was just shut down and frozen. As we moved through clinically, every time we tried to feed him, he would throw up, or he would just put the food all the way through his intestinal tract. And what we figured out is, didn't matter what we did surgically, this kid had no blood supply to his intestines. It was keeping his intestine alive, but when you challenged the intestine, you couldn't increase his blood flow. So he was basically starving to death. We had put a line in him to feed him by vein. He ended up getting that infected. He ended up infecting his heart. He clotted off a bunch of stuff. So I had to actually walk in one day and I said, "You have no options, young man. I can't feed you by mouth. I can't feed you by vein." I said, "You need a miracle to even survive this situation." And I told him, I said, "I know one miracle right now, a walking miracle." And I talked to him about John. I said, "I need John to come see you." And the kid looked at me and said, "Absolutely not. Won't happen." Well, there was a nurse in the room that was talking to me, and when Tay's mom showed up, the nurse relayed what I had said, and I got a phone call on my phone, and the nurse said, "Hey, Tay's mom's up here and wants to know why you told her son he's going to die." And I really said, "Well, I didn't say that, but the kid heard me. He was going to die." So I went upstairs and talked to his mom and said, "I got no options. I can't feed this kid. He's got a couple of weeks to live." And I said, "In that time, we'll see if we can turn him around." And I talked about John, and she said, "You bring that man in right now." And Tay's like, "Nope, nope, nope." And she said, "You don't have a choice." Mama Bear took over, and in came John, and this relationship started, and we were all watching this unravel to see what would happen. But as John kept coming back and kept doing those little things and kept bringing some life and some hope into this kid, clinically, I could see him kind of turn around. All the kid wanted was ice cream. And we actually got him to a point about 10 days later that we could slide some ice cream in, and he wasn't, sending it out the other end right away. But we got him buffed up enough to send him home. He still wasn't really eating. He had nutrition by vein. And I remember John setting up a meeting with him, said, well, I'll come to your house and see him. And it was a couple weeks later, I got a text from John and said, just saw Tay, he's doing great. We went out to lunch. And I immediately picked up the phone and I said, did you feed that kid? And he said, wasn't I supposed to? And I said, no, he's not supposed to eat anything. I said, did he run to the bathroom? He said, no, he did great. He did just fine. And I ended up calling Tay. I said, did you eat? He said, I ate real food, Popeye's chicken. He said, I did just fine. And I said, wow, look what's happened clinically that the docs can't fix, but a relationship can. And Tay came back to some visits in the post-op period because John would bring him. So he would show up and see us. And every time he came in, more light, more bright, more alive. There was one last visit a couple months later with me where I looked at him and said, you are completely healed. He's eating, he's drinking. He had seen infectious disease, cardiology, all this stuff. And they're like, he's great. It took a few months, but he had seen 75 different services in my hospital. Should be dead. But a miracle happened with this kid because people sat down and said, we're going to do something different with this. We're going to walk you through it. And so that's just kind of the short or long answer to Tay, the first kid we worked with.
And how old was his mother again? I
thought it was his sister.
I did too.
12 years older.
Yeah, she was 12 years older.
Yeah.
Trying to raise her kids. Okay, so now he's up and running. Tay got a job and reunited with his father. Actually, he worked with his father for a while and stuff, but he needed an injunction in his life and stuff that he wasn't getting. Because Tay is a nice kid. If you met him, you would love him and stuff. And Dr. Tom, like I said, we had to take down some barriers. We had to be willing to give him our cell phone numbers. You don't like with these kids, they gotta trust you. They gotta know that they can call you like your son would call you. And he would have them out at his house, this, that, other. I'm sure the hospital didn't approve of all this, but we seen and knew that we could change and help this young man and stuff, and it worked out great. I'd like to share a story about Brad. I'm going to share a story about Brad real quick.
Can you, can I jump in one thing, John?
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing John and I learned early on was everyone has a piece of the puzzle. You don't have the whole puzzle.
Right.
And John used to say to me, your job stops when you leave the operating room, and then my job picks up. But one thing we agreed on is we're going to switch hats. And so when we started the program, it wasn't in the hospital first. It was John coming to the hospital to see how it happened and John's teams, but also I went to Urban Ventures and I went to the Fathering Center, and I would go on Tuesday nights just to see what was out there in that world. So any group that I asked to help, my agreement was I'm coming to your place first. And for me, growing up and, living in Red Wing and stuff, to go to inner city Minneapolis or east side St. Paul, it was horrifying. It was horrifying, in a way I probably made up a false horrifying way that I made up. I had my own ideas of what happened and what was going to happen. And it was a learning experience for me and things that I need to grow in, to just say, people are people. And if you go where you're at, and I remember I went to the first night at the Fathering Center, and of course, I'm the only white guy there. And I sat down at where one table was open with some 200 or 300 people. And I thought, this is really different. But I was welcomed. I was in the conversation. I was learning a lot of different things. And that happened each and every time. When I went to Westside St. Paul with Chacho, my Latino friend, and he said, come see us. And it was a dinner and it was a sit down and on and on. And so I think that if you have your piece of the puzzle, you can represent it. But if you don't look at the other pieces, I don't think you're as effective as a leader to see what's going on and what's happening and how you all can work together.
Absolutely. So, like I said, Dr. Tom didn't have my skill set. I didn't have his. And I didn't have Chacho's skill set. I couldn't speak Spanish. You know, I couldn't reach out to the Spanish gangs, this, that, and the other. I didn't have the information that the gang unit had. So Dr. Tom started bringing in all these, this is no money now. There's no money on the floor and stuff. And as soon as people start talking about money, it got ugly, you know.
Yeah.
But people start coming in, man. Just think right now, if you had a situation and everybody on this call became a team to help you, you'd probably be able to solve that situation, you know, when you get like-minded, you know, people wanting to help. And sometimes we stay in our own little nest egg and stuff. I'm comfortable here. I'm going to have, Dr. Tom could have had all doctors work on this, but he knew that he needed outside resources. And they are actually plentiful, but we never ask. We never ask. So just a quick one about Brad. Now, I can't do the medical thing like Dr. Tom did, but he was walking across. You want to tell his medical history real quick?
Sure. Brad was a gentleman in his mid-30s, and he was a California kid, indoctrinated into the Serenos and the gangs in California, probably at a young age, 9-10 years old. And I think by the time, you know, he ran into me 20 plus years in and out of prison, and, you know, you can tell the story, but he left California, tried to get to North Dakota to straighten his life out, and actually had a pretty decent job. One day after work, he and his buddy were going to eat. And as they were crossing a train track, the buddy's dog was not paying attention, crossing the tracks. Brad could see a train coming and tried to run and shoo this dog away. The train could see Brad on the thing. They switched a track or something and pinched Brad's leg or ankle in the train track when it switched. And there he sits watching a train come at him. And he leaned back as far as he could. He leaned back so much he snapped his ankle, but the train had a cow pusher on the front, you know, like a snow blade. And that caught him in the belly and just ripped him open, eviscerated him, dropped him to the ground. Brad was stabilized in North Dakota. They kind of took some stuff out and patched together best what he could. And he was alive and flew him to us. And I remember the next day getting a checkout from one of my partners who said, hey, there's a guy in the OR right now they may call you about. They're looking at a terrible pelvic fracture. He was eviscerated by a train. And I said, okay. And it was probably 10 minutes later, they called me off the operating room, and here's an orthopedic surgeon trying to figure out some anatomy. And I said, I look at him and say, where's this guy's belly wall? He doesn't have one. I'm like, and the surgeon says, well, what's all this stuff in these exposed bones? I said, that's poop. I said, the dude's pooping I said, where's his colon? And he's like, I don't know. So as I sifted through all this stuff, all the repairs they had done had broken down. He'd spent a day and a half before transfer, just basically putting all his bowel contents into his abdomen, into these pelvic fractures. And I remember saying to the anesthesiologist, I said, is this guy even alive? And they said, barely. So I did a bunch of diversions and washed things out. They did what he could. I remember stretching skin, pinching the clothes, not even knowing what to do. And like Keontae, he kind of got vacuum packed and put in our ICU. And on the road he goes to multiple operations and on and on. I mean, he ultimately had just shy of 60 operations with us to get him kind of straightened out. But in this time frame, here is this Brad, who you see every day, who is just in and out of the operating room every day, every other day. And the windows you get to talk to him and try to figure out who he is, but he's shut down. He's quiet. He doesn't want to say anything. He's in a different state. But, you just kind of, like Brandon said, keep showing up, keep bringing life. And eventually he too got to the point where it's like, you need to see somebody other than me and my medical team. And I started to talk to him about John, and it was the same thing. Don't want anything to do with it. Don't want a thing to do with it. Brad ultimately was discharged to our transitional care unit, and I thought I'd lost him forever. And 36 hours later, I got a call from my ER. I was on call, and they said, there's a guy down here named Brad who needs to talk to you. About 3:30 in the morning. So I ran down to the ER, and here is this. I thought I was in the wrong room. There's a guy laying in the bed that looks like he'd been boiled in water. He is bright red. He is screaming in pain, moaning. I look up, he's got a blood pressure next to nothing. His heart's super fast. And I said, Brad, what are you doing? He says, I'm dying. And he had a massive antibiotic reaction. His liver was failing. His kidneys were failing. His bone marrow was shutting down. He had this thing called scalded skin syndrome. And he said, he looked at me in the eyes and said, Tom, you know me well enough. He says, you need to kill me. And I said, I can't do that. And he says, you know me and I'm okay with it. Kill me. And I remember saying to Brad, this is the first time I ever prayed directly, really, with the patient. I said, Brad, I'll pray for you. And I tried to grab his hand and he screamed in pain, but he had a patch of skin about the size of a quarter on the palm of his hand that wasn't involved. I touched his palm and prayed for him. And his pulse went down, his blood pressure went up, and he fell asleep. But he went back into our ICU, spent another week, dialysis, all kinds of stuff. And by the time he came through that, I said, you ready to talk to John and move on? He said, yep. And then that's when John came back in.
Okay, so when he, because Brad was going to lose his leg. And he's
I forgot. Yeah, that was part of, his pelvic fracture was so bad and the nerves were torn up. Yeah, they did go in and say, we're going to cut your leg off. That was the defining moment where he said, you're not cutting my leg off. And I said, well, if you need a miracle, here comes John. And because my son has gotten his leg cut off. Now, if you hear my name, you don't know John Turnipseed. I think this is, Royal 13 Latin King type guy. And here I show up in the room and he looks at me like, what do you want? I said, I'm John Turnipseed. Oh, you a brother? Yeah. And then he just turned his head. So I just sat there for about 15 minutes. I prayed for him, came back the next day. Hey, that's all he said. And I sat and I prayed for him. The next day, Devon couldn't be in school for some reason. And I had to take him with me. So I show up with Devon. He's about 10, 11 years old, inquisitive, big teeth, laughing. And he goes in the room and he starts asking the guy questions. Hey, what do they got this? And the guy starts laughing. And explaining it to Devon to the best of his ability. So him and Devon bonded. So then when I would go visit, I'd always bring Devon. And all of a sudden, the barrier with me being an African American went down and stuff. Before he got out of the hospital, we had a Super Bowl party in his room where Dr. Tom clogged his catheter. What'd you give him? Some M&M peanuts he wasn't supposed to have? M&Ms. We plugged his colostomy. They were screaming and shouting. You got John rooting for one team and our Latino rooting for the other, and the nurses wondering why we're all screaming. And we had quite a process going up in this hospital. And John's son was there and my son was there. And it was quite interesting. So Brad recovered. Brad is, last I heard, in college. He wrote a book about his experience. He's a motivational speaker. He reunited with his son, and his son is going to college and doing good. Yep. I mean, all of that came out of that and stuff. We can't take the credit. God did all that. There's the spiritual component. There's nothing that compares to it. There's nothing
huge you can do without it. I believe that in my heart and soul. Before I go on, any questions about any of this?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So how much? So this sounds like this is a ministry, but I understand, Dr. Tom, you say, that was the first time that you pray with a patient and whatnot. And what it sounds like y'all are saying, and it makes perfect sense to me, right? Is what the scriptures talk about, that one plants the seed, and then one waters, but it's God who brings forth the increase. Right? That's what it sounds like. Tom or John plant, the other waters, and this is through relationship. How my question is, how explicit are you with you know with the religious aspect of it, the Christian aspect of it? How explicit are you with patients and with people in this situation?
Yeah. I'll tackle this one first, John. That's a great question, Brandon. It's an often asked question because John and I have our faith, but that's not how we lead. And when we do the right thing, people know and people ask, why are you different? Why are you doing this? And there's an opportunity to talk. For me, it's like, I do this because you need a miracle, and I only know one miracle maker, and so on. But when we started this program, the chaplain that really didn't like it said, why are you coming in here as a Christian organization? What makes you so special? And John looked at him and said, you ever been shot? And the guy said, nope. And John said, that's why I'm coming in, because I have been shot and I know. And John said, when I was in prison and I needed the whole prison to do something, I would say, I don't care what your faith is. Give me the good part and let's band together in the goodness of our faiths and make something happen, make a change. I can't do the work I do without having faith. I shouldn't be allowed into the neighborhoods I go into. I shouldn't be allowed into the rooms I go into. And the only reason I am is because I come in with just as a father. I get the opportunity as the surgeon who pulled you out of the fire, but I come in as a father, as someone of faith. And I think that's what I represented. It all comes down to hope. And for me, that's what my Christianity brings into this, is I have the ability to bring a hope that a lot of people don't have. And at some point they may ask me about it. At some point they may not. But at least I can bring a miracle maker into the room, because we can't fix everything surgically. You can't fix Brad without a miracle, or Tay, so that's, I hope that answers. And John, maybe you have some you can build on with that, but.
Yeah, I'm gonna find, especially with African American kids, Jesus is not a foreign language to them. Okay, I was brought up in the church. I knew all the books of the Bible by the time I was 6, 7 years old. I could recite all the names. I didn't know what all that meant, but and church was a part of my life. So later on in life, when someone talked to me about spirituality, I at least could listen. And especially if I was in a desperate situation and stuff, and there was no other method out, I was really willing to listen. And if I was tired, tired. And the program got some attention. Hennepin County came a calling, and we told them, told them what to do, and they went and started their own program. Now they got them in Hennepin County Medical Center and North Memorial, and they never give us credit for it, but they say they came up with this wonderful program about violence intervention. And we're good with that as long as it's helping kids. One of the things, and I'll say this, let's see, how many we got on this call? 9. Now, none of my white brethren have spoken and stuff. Now, I say that for a reason and stuff. Sometimes we feel like, well, we don't. No, everybody's a part. Dr. Tom, it never. If he's seen a gangbanger, he wouldn't know what it was. And I had never. The surgeon calling me? Are you kidding me? You know, two polar opposites, you know, one going this way, one going this way, one saving lives, one taking lives. We all have a part to do with it. I want to tell you, there's a friend of ours that passed away, and I think we went to the funeral in Chicago, Tom Skinner. And Tom, at the funeral, a guy gets up, a white guy who was a friend of Tom's, and he's speaking. And he said he went into an all-black neighborhood as a pastor and wanted to start a program. And the pastors shunned him. His kids wouldn't talk to him because the pastors wouldn't speak to him. The parents wouldn't speak to him because he was a white guy, this, that, and the other. And he went and asked Tom for advice. What do I do? I want to work in this community. And he said, Tom told him, continue to continue. He said, a few years later, they accepted me with open arms, open, you know, I mean, I'm like one of the pastors. It's not the white pastor. I'm one of the pastors. All the African-American pastors talk to me, and mothers trust me with their kids because they thought, you know, maybe here's a white guy. We don't know who you are, this, that, and the other. But you continue to continue. If you're doing what God has called you to do, you just keep doing it. And sooner or later, God has always got his hand on it. But he will bring you the people that you need to make it work. So I tell everybody, this is everybody's game, you know. And I'm not saying you have to tackle gang problems necessarily. There's other problems. Illiteracy, you know, kids not having enough mentors in schools and things like that. And sometimes if you get in over your head, that's why partnerships are so important. You get in over your head, you got a knucklehead, you know, that you can't deal with. If you got a partner that deals with knuckleheads, that helps and stuff. So we need doers, not narrators. You get a lot of narrators. Hey, the crime problem in Minnesota is A, B, C, E, F, G. Okay? We get a lot of groups running into situations and stuff because there's money there. Just be honest. And the kids smell the money on your back. They can smell it and stuff. You know, all of a sudden, I won't mention any names, but one guy bought him one of those Teslas. You know, he got into the violence and prevention stuff, which the mayor poured a lot of money out. And next thing you know, a month and a half later, he's got a Tesla. Like, how in the hell? Because, you know, it's sort of poverty pimping. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't have a good heart, because his work is hard. But I'm just saying this is the kids on the outside looking. They're looking at you very closely. They're watching your every move. And kids, these young street kids have to learn how to profile people. They have to learn that because their life depends on it. It doesn't matter if you're black or white. They will profile you and put you in certain categories and stuff. And you can't come in with your billfold wide open. That's one of the biggest mistakes. All of a sudden you become a trick. That's an old term for a guy that dates prostitutes. Okay, you're paying for his love and attention and all that kind of stuff. You know, I'm not saying I've given guys a few dollars and helped guys. I bought a guy a bus ticket to go see his mom in Chicago. That's sort of different. We had a relationship. I knew him personally. You know, we talked a lot. You know, but the kid I first met him, he said, "Hey man, I need a car." And he said, "I think I can buy you a car." You know, no, I exaggerated a little bit, but it's all of our thing. And you never know who can help you unless you reach out and ask for help, because violence, a lot of times we look at violence, it doesn't relate to us until it hits home. And then we want to do something about it. Every year there's an organization that pops up because somebody got killed in their family and they want to start the March Against Roosters Killing People organization or something. I'm making a light of it. Yeah, you get all these organizations. Right now in Minnesota, we probably got 50 organizations that popped up because of somebody in their family got killed. And they call themselves foundations, whatever, nonprofits. What if they all work together? What if these 50 people got together? Man, I can't even envision it. But when money gets involved, people get a little funny. You know, they don't want to work with each other and stuff. You know, they don't invite each other to different events. And I'm in the nonviolent movement now. I have been for years, and my method of nonviolence is opening a father's heart. Once a father realizes he's a father, it changes things. Not a dad, he's a father and stuff. Most of these kids have a hole in their heart the size of a father and stuff, and nobody's ever been in that space for them. So if you can open up that's why I teach parenting. That's why I have, parenting groups and things of that nature. And when I watch guys become dads, fathers, real fathers and stuff, they go out and they start working with their kids. My 16-year-old, trust me, I wouldn't have been able to raise him he's never been suspended. He's a straight A student. I still think he's cool. The girls will start liking him now. He's got a little dreads and he's, got his little that and he got his little swag, got sunglasses and all that kind of stuff, this, that, and the other. And has to have the best shoes that I don't buy, he worked for. But if I'd have raised him when I wasn't a father, he'd have been a gangster. He'd had no choice. That would have been the influence in his life. But somebody had to get to me to get to him.
So I want to give you a story of what it means to find out you're a father. We took a group in a bus on a Saturday, right out in front of our building here. We went out to the lake, and we put the fathers and their kids in the bus. And what happened is the fathers all sat in the front of the bus, and the kids all sat in the back. Now, when we got out, the kids all ran to a playground, and they all were playing out there, and the fathers went over and sat on a bench together. Then we put them out in boats, where the dad was wheeling the boat around the lake, and the kids had to be around them. Then we took them up for lunch, and the dads all sat at a table, and the kids all sat at their tables. In other words, there was a separation. The dads were together, apart from their kids, until they had to be together to do something, and then they separated again. And there's a separation in the man between a father and his kids. That make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Just wanted to share that story because it's a real one.
Yeah, so even in the movie, me and my dad, we had a bad relationship. And if he and I couldn't have gotten along, I get short of breath sometimes. I don't think I'd have been in the places I was in because I was a good kid. I really was. If you knew me at 7 and 8 years old, man, I just wanted to play and have fun and do schoolwork and get patted on the back. That's all I wanted to do. And that changed and stuff. So father absence, I believe, is probably the biggest problem that we have in the world. Father absence and stuff. It's behind most of the ills of the world. When I was in prison, Father's Day, hardly any mail went out. Mother's Day, the Mother's Day cards sold out. You go to the visiting room, ain't no dads there. And when I was in therapy groups, of course they bring up dad, and everybody, most of the time, it'd be F dad. I don't know who he is and stuff. I have a phrase, and I really mean this, if every father went out and got their kid off the street corners, we wouldn't have gangs. I refuse to let my kids sell drugs on the street. Now, I don't know, it might be sneaking behind my back or something, but they better be sneaking because I'm not doing that no more. There's a time when that was okay. And I'm not gonna let my grandchildren go without a male figure in their life because I know how important it is. And so in your own life, in your own circle, before you go out and save the world, make sure you're doing whatever you can in your own circle first.
Okay, now we're gonna be wrapping this up pretty soon because, and I'm just gonna simply, first of all, Tom, thank you for taking the time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invite. I did my best here.
And John getting out of the hospital this week and coming in here for class. So I just want to thank them. Any quick questions from anybody else right now? Was this worth it? Was this a worthwhile hour and a half? Okay, we're going to pick this up next week. Now we're going to talk about next week. We called it this: new story, new script. I need a new story. I got an old story. I need a new story, and I need a new script. And how do I do that? So John and I are going to talk about that. I just want to leave this with you. Before you hear the good news, you have to hear the bad news. And this is the bad news. This is about these guys that they're dying in the hospital. They got help, but how do we get the good news? And how do we get that out to people? And how do we make it make sense? So, new story, new script next week. Does that make sense? Then we are going to graduate to going on to our spreadsheets again and saying, okay, what's the organization I'm building and what are my goals and how am I putting it together? So we will be putting together our Rising Community Leaders spreadsheet, okay? Any last questions? Travis, you okay?
All good on my side, Art. Thanks.
Okay. Brandon?
Yeah, I'm good. I just wrote in the chat about that father absence, and I appreciate that phrase because it really does put it forth that we're gonna raise our kids regardless. Either we're gonna raise it with them with us being there, or we're gonna raise them with us being absent. And so our presence or our absence is gonna dominate their lives one way or the other.
Great.
So
Marquise?
I appreciate that.
Yep. Marquise?
Marquise. That's what you got to start getting right, sir. You got to start saying my name right. Marquise. Yes. I mean, yes, it's I remember buying my dad a Father's Day card, but he had never really been in my life. And this is why I was incarcerated, and it just felt weird to me because he had never been there in my life. So I never bought him another one. I mean, it just felt weird because he was never really there, a part of my life, like he probably could have. But I know he struggled with what he had. He struggled, and he went and got himself better. And I just feel like he never really came back and got me.
Okay. Thank you, Marquise. Trent?
This is great. Thank you. John, let me ask you one question just for where I'm at. I'm on 14th and Nicollet, and we do a lot with the youth to build relationships and bring them in the church and be more of a father figure for them, because a lot of single parent households, a lot of the activity on the streets is with adults, probably 30s, 40s that are still in the game. What are your thoughts? What are the ways that you've reached out to them? Or I know for us, we're trying to break that generation and we're starting with a lot of the youngest kids, but the adults just don't seem to be that interested, and there's a lot to work against. What are your thoughts on that, and what have you done?
Now we can talk more about that next week because that's where we're going. How do we get a new story and a new script? Any quick thought?
Yeah, I have two different programs. I deal with youth in one thing and I deal with adults in another. They can't be mixed.
Yeah.
The growth, there's a whole different thing you have to do with grown men in this, and hopefully we'll talk about that next week.
Okay. that'd be
Okay, great. Akeem?
I feel like this was something that, discussion that need to be talked about. Whether people are acknowledging it or not, we all have similar traumas. So similar things that helped us come to the point that we are at, we can use some of those things to help our community. And like you referred to before, it takes a village. So it's going to take my experience, John's experience, Brandon, Travis, Marquise, Tom, Trent, and Victor. It's going to take all of our experiences to change one kid. And, I like this group. It shows a little dedication that, we are dedicated to at least changing our immediate circle. I don't know if everybody's doing the community work, but this will give us the tools to change our immediate circle. So I appreciate the conversation.
Great. Thank you for joining us today. Victor?
It's a great message. It's a lot to unpack, but yeah, I'm thankful to sit here and have these powerful conversations with you guys.
Great. Thank you. And Kenneth?
Yeah, I thought it was very, very helpful. And yeah, I feel the same way as Victor. I think I have a lot of thinking to do, and I think it was very good. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna cut it off now, a little early. That's okay though. But next week we'll be back on. And Tom, I can't say enough about what you're doing. And let's say this about the group that's around the table here, because it takes people at every level, on the community level, on the professional level, in the government level, in the corporate level. It takes everybody working together at the church level, right? We have to build a fellowship of people that are going to do this together, because it's building the village, and it takes the village, and it takes everybody.
Amen. I appreciate the invite, and for all you guys listening. I mean, this is, like I said, I haven't slept in 30 hours, but when Art calls and you guys show up, this is one reason I don't want to sleep, because this is where it starts. And when Brandon asked about faith, what I learned through this process is people do addition, God does multiplication. And when you bring a group together like this and you start doing your piece of the puzzle, boy, does it explode and stuff. So, if there's anything I can do in the future to help Art or John, let me know. And I thank you guys for the time and the opportunity to just join you. Appreciate it.
And I just want to say, Lord, thank you for this session and this time with all of us here together. Bless us. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 See you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it, everybody.
Go to sleep, Doc.
Yeah.
Been
Go
up
to
all
sleep.
night.
That's right. Now.
I don't want you operating on nobody. No sleep.
Bye.